Hello, everyone, and welcome to the FCBDU podcast, your backstage pass to the magical world of Fat Chance Belly Dance style. I'm your host, DeAnna, and I invite you to join me along with a variety of special guests and experts as we explore the beauty, intricacies, and lifestyle topics of this captivating dance style. Grab a comfortable seat, tune in, and let's embark on a journey through the rhythms, movements, and history that make Fat Chance Belly Dance style an enchanting experience like no other. In part 4 of this series, Creating Success, Lacey and I share visualization examples that we love to create. They help us define and manifest our goals. This is a great episode to watch on our YouTube channel since we will share a lot of visualizations, but you'll still find plenty of inspiration even if you're simply just listening along. So grab your goal list, some stickers, and maybe even some gel pens, and let's have some fun making your dreams a reality. Now that we know why we have the goals that we have, right? What kind of mindset? Yeah, what kind of mindset makes the best goals that are more successful? We have our prana, right? And then we have our SMART goals, how we create these goals. Yeah. Now let's talk a little bit about how we can manifest these goals. Yeah. So let's talk about visualization. And Lacey, I'm going to spotlight you for a few moments and let you start us out here.
Okay, yeah. Let's talk about my visualizations. So I actually talking about like my personal goals. To get there, sometimes I'm not always sure, right? I am guilty of what I should do, what I'm supposed to do, and that doesn't always collide well with what I actually want to do. So I figured it out. Well, let's backtrack. So a huge turning point for me and a lot of transition was around pandemic time and when things changed. And I'm an incredibly visual person. And I'd always heard that journaling was really good. Tried it a bunch. And I think for a lot of people, it works out great. What ended up happening for me was I just ended up writing down all the negative. It became a dump for me, like a dumping ground, which is therapeutic, I suppose, in and of itself, but it didn't get me to a good place is really what it boils down to. And then by chance, I heard about junk journaling in my effort to journal. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And it kind of all started, and this even perhaps goes into Lacey about your books. So I love all things that are old. The older it is, the happier it makes me. And so I saw a page that was junk journaling, and it was somebody had taken a page from The Great Gatsby, and blacked out certain words to make a poem, and then had kind of done a collage around it. And I lost my mind. Like, I thought that was the most beautiful, amazing thing ever. And I was like, how did I not know this was a thing? Because collaging, scrapbooking, etc., had always been something that I enjoyed looking at, but it felt as though it had to be perfect and that there were rules. And if anything has a very specific rule, it makes me uncomfortable. So at least in creativity, right? So I need to feel like I can express. So what I ended up doing was I did these junk journals, or what I call my own personal scrapbooking, but I did them in a way to figure out what I wanted. So that long story is to figure out like, well, what makes me happy? Like, deep dive share was like, I didn't know what made me happy anymore. And I didn't quite know how to figure it out. So knowing that visual things make me happy, I was like, okay, what am I drawn to? So I'll show you my very first one and then I'll flip through. So I call these my scrapbooking pages, but I started kind of filling, there we go, my eyes with things words and images that made me happy. And the way that I used them was the way that a lot of people describe free writing, right? Where you just write whatever comes to your mind, and then you look at it and make the connections later. And that's what I did with these pages. So this is probably this was the first one where like, I was like, oh, progress. Okay. Yeah. So I made this one and I was like, oh, we're getting there. And I spent a lot of time with this one, and I was able to and then I made personal pages, which I'm not going to share with you guys because it's a little too personal, but then I would write based on my visual. And I was like, what do I see here? Because this is like my most raw, right? So this was the most I didn't judge anything that I pulled out. I have another picture that's one of those that I did share, and other people really didn't like it. And it only solidified like how much of like my core was on that page, because I didn't care. And not caring, like when people were like, oh, that's weird, was like a lot for me, you know, but I was like, oh, this is really my true self. So what is my true self trying to tell me that I want? And the more pages I made, and the more symbolic. Okay, so that was just like a fun one, like just FYI. So that one didn't tell me much other than like stuff I already knew. But then as like these themes of nature, colors even that came up over and over again, symbology that I started to see like myself. Sorry, some of my pages are coming undone. Hang on. Symbology that I started to see over and over again really made a difference. And then I have one page I really want to show you guys. So what I love is that then I started to get more creative, right? As I got more comfortable, like with my voice, basically. So as I got to know things, oh, this one's fun. This is a total Lacey one. Right. And so it might seem silly, but one of the things that I realized was that I needed more play in my life, right? I needed more excuses to just have fun, but that it also was surrounded with nature. Like this is a newer one that I had done. All of the things where I like a lot and a lot, and I'm okay with that. And then the biggest, let's see if I can get to where is, okay, so this one was huge. This was a big turning point for me. Let's see, oh wait, this way. And I was able, like, yeah, like this one gets me emotional. Like I let go of a lot. Like Carolina's here. That's actually Carolina. I didn't say goodbye to Carolina, for the record. But like there was just me moving through so much in this. This one actually says, because you can't see it because of the thing, but it says gentle AF. And I want to get as many stickers as I can. I feel like everybody needs that in their life. It's a sweetheart thing, and it says gentle as F word. So just FYI if you're not sure what that means. So to be gentle as with yourself all the time. So that was super important. And then I made this one, and Philippa has seen it. Yeah. And then for me, it was all in visuals. And this was when I had made a huge decision after I had done this one. So it's my biggest board, and I come back to it over and over again. And it just, I was able, and I try so hard not to think while I do them. Right. So, which from my understanding, isn't always the way it's done. I know, DeAnna, you've been doing vision boards a lot longer than I have. But it really, and I promised I would show you this one. So I'll show you, I'll have one more and then I'll be done. But I use them as this ability to just, what do I want? What is my why? Like that was it. I was like, I don't know. Right. But what I found was, it was like, it also checked boxes. I want more time where I'm not having mandatory time. I want to do something for fun just because. I don't care if it's any good, right? Because there were all of these additional things on the side where it was like, well, I don't do anything unless I can make money at it or be great at it and da-da-da. Why not just do something for fun? So that was that as well, play, et cetera, et cetera. And then it allowed me through that process to figure out what I really wanted. So this was the one that made other people uncomfortable, but really let me know that like, this is me. So I love this one so much. Yeah, and it really got to like the heart of some things for me, and yeah, so now I do them, and I haven't done one in a while. It also, oh God, so I have two that are unfinished. That's huge for me. So, like, to not finish something and walk away and come back is like big growth for me, because it was like, get it done. If you didn't get it done, it was a waste of time. Like that is like my inner voice. So it's like, just let it come. And if it doesn't, go back to it. Like that in and of itself was a huge step for me. So, and what does that mean exactly? Does that mean that I'm in process with the things on the page? Does that mean that I don't have the answer yet, so it can't conclude? Like I was able to draw so much from creating those pages. Yeah, so those are like, and the process of getting them, the process of finding the images, like I learned so much about myself in all of that. One of the things that was, because it was during pandemic, like I've always loved antiquing, like always. Like if I need to reset, I go antiquing. Like being surrounded by old things the answer to life, in my opinion. But I couldn't do that. So I had to turn like, how do I make this realistic? How do I do the thing? And I went to the internet, and come to find out, you can buy, and this might even be something for you, Lacey. So I went on Etsy, and I was able to buy a pound or a quarter pound or whatever of novels. So I was able to get those to use. I was able to get children's books, right? So I was able to buy X amount, and they just kind of go through them, kind of a thing. So like, or magazines, they'll just like get rid of ads or something, so that you're getting quality pictures. And I thought that was amazing. I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing, so there was a lot of really good. So that's like the core of my visualizations. And I know that was, thanks. I'm glad you like them. That's like really, that's as much soul bearing as I could do. Like those are Lacey's pure self, like on a page.
I love them. I think that's such a beautiful, beautiful share. Thank you so much, Lacey. And such a beautiful example of like, I don't know, if you don't know what your goals are, or you're like, I have goals for work, but I don't have personal goals, or I don't even know what direction I want to go into, that you can really use those to get there and to really like dive into your why, like you said, like, what is your why? And then you get there and you're like, actually, decluttering or organizing my things isn't my why, isn't what you thought it was, like what we were talking about.
Yeah, I'm doing it in dance now. I mean, not necessarily into the board, although I might. It's more like in a Pinterest kind of board. But once I figured out that imagery was so important to me, because I'm really transitioning, like, and I can share this. So Florida Tribal Dance was all about outreach. Like, I remember that this actually wraps it all up. So I used to look at Fat Chance and be like, I want to be that kind of mecca. Like, I didn't want to be Fat Chance, but like the way that you wanted to go to the Fat Chance studio, like you wanted to be there. I was like, I want to be my version of that. I was like, I want people to want to come to Florida Tribal Dance for education, and because that you can have great instruction, bring awesome dancers. Like, if you're in Florida, I want you to want to come to this school. Like, and that was like my drive, and I want to blah, blah, blah. And then changing to Wild Garden, it changed that a little bit for me. It's less about outreach. Not that I don't want you to come visit, come see me, right? But when it's safe and when you feel good to do so, right? But it's a little bit more nurturing. It's a little bit more, like, pun intended, like tending the garden, right? But it was hard for me because like Florida Tribal Dance was always my drive. It was like, I know what I want. I know how I'm going to get there. Do the thing. And now I'm like, I'm not sure. So I've started to collect images that are like, I want that feeling, and I want that, and I want that. And I've done that with pictures of my students. So I found, I'm like, I want to make sure this energy comes with us, and I want to make sure that it feels like this. And even down to the space that I've chosen now, I'm like, like I've been at one space and I'm like, I need an energy, I need a vibe. So I've looked for that to draw that in and collect that. So again, it's translated to my work as well.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So yes. I think that I'm a visual person as well, which is actually why I feel like I can't have things everywhere. So mine is different, right? If I see things, I feel like it's something I have to do, or I have to take care of it. I don't know why my mindset is like that, but that's just how it is. So I don't want to see anything unless it's something that I have to do, because otherwise I get overwhelmed. So that's why I have my vision boards, which I'll share with you, and why I have a handwritten, like, write it out calendar, which I'll talk about shortly as well. So the vision boards that I created are more of a reminder of what it is I want to do or want to bring in. When we talk about the power of visualization, what we want to make sure we're doing with our goals is we want to, first of all, we should have even started with this. You want to enjoy the process of the whole thing, right? You don't want to be like, I had to suffer through this for 12 months just to do the thing. Like, how can you make it more enjoyable? But also, like, visualize it had already happened, right? Visualize you already doing the thing. So Natty, visualize yourself on stage playing your finger cymbals like a rock star, right? Lacey, visualize yourself sitting in and having the feeling that you're going for with your organized space.
Malik, have your book, right?
Exactly. Malik, visualize yourself at the bookstore signing copies of your novel, like that's what you want to do. You want that visualization as if it's already happened, because that's how you're going to manifest it in. And so my vision boards, when you look at them, you may think she's crazy, and you may think it has nothing to do with her goals, but seeing this like end result kind of thing on my vision boards helps me have a focus. And so where you put those, right? So I have
Right.
these, except for today, right now, I have these hanging
Heavy.
above my monitor in my office so that when I'm sitting at my computer, I am seeing them, even
Yeah.
subconsciously seeing these vision boards out there. So I make new ones every year just because they're super fun. Last year I was going through a big I was going through a big change, I think personally, where I was coming out of this mindset of having to do and do and do and do and do. And I was like trying to carve out space to just be. Because it was the first time in my entire life that I wasn't grinding at the corporate level, trying to climb that corporate ladder. And I was like,
Mhm.
DeAnna, you are designing the life that you have always wanted to have. Why are you still in these habits of,
Yeah.
starting work at 6 in the morning and not finishing until 8 at night, and like all of those things. So I was trying to shift my mindset. So I ended up making two vision boards, and I there's so much in here that I won't go through everything. So this is my one that was about the doing, right? So for me, I'll share this. So you'll notice here I have like journaling, right, which is something that I've been doing every day since the pandemic. Journaling every day. You've got the power, like solar plexus chakra, like really feeling empowered in myself, stepping into it, um, learning from my opposite. Who do I not want to be? What do I not want to represent? Like keeping in mind, staying on my path and using other people's I don't want to say failure, but just like what do I not want to do? Right. And so when I look at this was a big part of this was I hesitated for so many years to leave something that was very comfortable. 401k, retirement plan, bonuses every year, climbing, like I said, climbing that corporate ladder, 6-figure income, like all of that. I left all of that. And I was so hesitant because I was like, I see so many people doing it and then resenting their dance, or they're doing it and they don't succeed, and then like a year later they're back begging for their old job, or like all of these things that I had seen over the years, or at least that I had told myself in my head. And so I was like, no, you're going to do the opposite of what you think it's going to be like, right? You have the power to do this. You've got this. Just keep shining and doing what you want to do and what drives you, and you can do it. Dream it, dare it, do it. I have experience, integrity, and credibility, like telling myself this was my, like, you can do this kind of thing, because that was a huge deal for me. And so this is something I shared with Lacey the other day. I was like, I have a Tiffany and Company image on here. And that doesn't mean like one of my goals is to buy a new piece of Tiffany. That's not what it means. What it represents, the visualization to me, is that I feel um, like I can treat myself to something that makes me feel beautiful or makes me feel special because I've done a really great job, or I've brought in enough income that I feel like I'm not struggling to pay my bills, kind of a thing. So all of that was like super, super important to me. Keep growing, keep learning. The books representing right there. General motivator, like be that cheerleader for other people. So this was my like doing. This was more leading me toward what I have out as my written goals for the year of my business, right? So this was my kind of, I guess, like you can think about it as my right side of my brain, right? um, and then I have my other side, which is where I really wanted to focus a lot of my life on the being, right? So I knew I couldn't just like let go of the whole doing, because that's how I've lived my life, and that's kind of how I measure my success, is like by the doing. So I knew I needed the equanimity of the being, like just spending a part of my time on just the being. So equanimity, it's not all about just achieving, DeAnna, right? Remember that. The biggest obstacle is your own mind, but fortunately you can change that. So this was all about the mind shift into letting my heart lead as much as my brain tends to lead. And so, like I said, I'm not tying this image directly into something that I wrote down as my goal. It's the overall imagery that brings in the energy of what my goals are all about. So that as I look at them, I'm creating this imagery, this visualization, creating this is what I want in my life. So it's the representation of that and not specific. So you can definitely, there's some feedback now that you came back, Lacey. I don't know what's up. Yeah, I can just hear myself when you're there. So it's not that I've created these goals, right? And then I've gone out and I've found a picture that represents this goal and I'm cutting it out and I'm putting it on here so that I can see my list and my pictures that represent my list. That's actually not what we mean by visual. You can certainly do that. But what I'm hoping you get out of what Lacey's sharing and what I'm sharing is that having images, whether they're cutouts, collages, or like Lacey, having the things around you that bring in that energy that you want to live in your life and the represent the goal that you're trying to achieve can be huge in your actual achieving of your goals. So sometimes it's not necessarily about the checklists and the, you just kind of have to work with what try all the things, right? And then find what works for you. And that's been what works for me is the visualization of what energies is it that my goals represent. So you can do that ahead of time before setting your goals to identify what your why is, and then you can do it afterward, right? To help you manifest those goals. So does anybody that's joined us, do you guys use visualization at all? Maybe you have an image next to you or a photo. People do this as simple as something as working in your office. They have a picture of their family in front of them. Maybe they miss their family because they're working, but like that photo of your family represents why you're working so hard or like the vacation that's coming, things like that. So Lacey has a great question. She says, on the vision board, do you save cutouts all the time or when you are in the process of creating a board? So Lacey, I think we might have some different processes, but you tell me what you're doing.
Yeah, so it kind of comes in waves a little bit. Like I don't have an ongoing like source. So sometimes like I haven't created a board in a while. But when I got going, I wanted to do the thing and I didn't have anything. Or so I thought, which I will also talk about. So I got I made an order for things and then I went once it was safe a little while back, I went to an antique market and I bought a bunch of National Geographics and then I was immediately overwhelmed by the stuff. And I was like, oh, we're going to have to get a hold of this, right? I was like, I can't just have piles of crap everywhere. So what I ended up doing was I have a process now that if I get magazines or if I get something that I like, I go through it. I take the pages out that I like. And then sometimes I'll actually cut out or I'll just take the page. And then my very sophisticated organizational style is Ziploc bags with a label. So I do like travel, animals, dance, whatever. And then if I think it relates to that, it goes to the Ziploc. So again, similarly to the example that I gave before with creating for Tourney Soul, I found that when I wanted to create a page, it took so long to like find the things I wanted and to go through that by the time I found the images, I had already used all this time and I didn't love that. So sometimes the process of finding things can be enjoyable and sometimes not. So just FYI. So yeah, so I took some time to do that. And then what I realized was I had a ton of things to use. I had kept business cards that I liked for years. Like if I had seen an artist that I really loved their things, I would grab a business card because often really beautiful art is on their card. And I had this collection of business cards for whatever tucked away that I was like, oh, this is such a great way to use those things. I also, as a kid, used to collect trading cards. So I had some trading cards. I'm like, what am I going to do with these? Again, that idea of like, do I get rid of it? Oh, but it's important to me. Is it still important to me? And so now I repurpose those and I keep the cards that I really love. Like I have Fern Gully cards for anyone that liked Fern Gully.
I was just dancing to the Fern Gully thing the other day. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, this is fine. So I realized I was like, oh, and I'm like, I will use those now for this. So kind of I repurposed into who I am now, where I used to love this collectible. Now I'm using it for, this other kind of craft / goal kind of thing. So that's where I'm at right now. That might change over time. I do love stickers. Like I love stickers. And so I will I'll be like, oh, I really love them. And so I'll get those from time to time, and kind of tuck them away. But I'm finding that it's a collection and then I'll work with what I have, and a collection and work with what I have. What about you, DeAnna?
Yeah, kind of similar. So for several years, for pre-pandemic, for several years, I would have a big New Year's Day party where Mark and I cooked all kinds of traditional New Year's Day foods, like black-eyed peas and collard greens and all the things. And everybody would bring their magazines. They just knew. And plus I had gone to the thrift store and gotten a bunch of stuff. People would bring their magazines and we would lay them out all over the table or in the floor or whatever. And we would sit there and we would pass them around. Oh, you would like this, or you would like this. And we would find these images and cut them out. And it was amazing and beautiful. And I have goosebumps thinking about it because I miss it so much. But not only is your own energy infused with the thought process that goes into it when you're cutting out and you're thinking about the image and all the things you're going to do, and all of that energy goes into the image. But also when you're sitting around a table with comfort food and conversations, everybody's energy is infused in everybody's imagery, right? So I would end up with stuff that I cut out and I couldn't quite get it to, physically fit into the board. And so I'd stick it in a pile. So I do a little bit of both. I have a pile of stuff that I have saved over the years, images that make me happy. And so I'll pull those out and go back through them, but also going to the thrift store and getting I went to the thrift store and got a bunch of magazines and books. And one of the books I got was a book on anatomy. Oh my gosh. So I sat down and I played one of my, I take a lot of extra yoga classes for my next certification. So I just sat there with the class, taking the class, and then sitting there with a little scalpel and, the rib cage, and I'm cutting it out, So sometimes it's just a matter of, I guess that goes back to the time, Lacey, where I'm things that I know I want to do, but I also have to do, and I'm incorporating them in together. Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah. So because I have an example of that too. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's just, so I have some that I already have, but then also when I'm sitting down with my vision boards, I'm going to sit down and go through it. But one more thing I want to share, because these were two completely different thoughts. Something I didn't realize until after I made them was, notice how one is horizontal portrait and one is landscape. Notice how my one that's all about being and doing and achieving is very square and very lined up. And this fits here perfectly. And the one that was about being and just enjoying and being creative, I put glitter on here unintentionally, this is a geode that kind of stuck off the top. I put things that didn't really, I layered things on top, and you can completely see the mindset. This was not intentional, but you can completely see the mindset difference in making one than the other. And I made these the same day. So it's crazy how helpful it can. It's not crazy. There's science behind it too, but it's very inspirational how amazing it can be. So I guess what I'm trying to get down to is, it doesn't matter when you get into cutting them out. I feel like you probably will get the things that are most relevant to you at that point in time if you sit down and pull all the things and cut them out while you are doing it, because you are infusing that energy into the process. But you can also incorporate that. What were the time things that I wrote down?
Oh, yeah.
You can incorporate your treasured time in with your mandatory time.
Yeah. I wanted to kind of wrap kind of some of those ideas together of what you were talking about, because vision boards is, so FYI, I used to think vision boards, I was like, oh, that sounds great. Right. Well, that's nice to have time. I don't know. I would talk myself out of stuff all the time, which is so dumb, but it's true. I'd just be like, well, what is that? How is it? Why does it matter? Right. So the first thing is that if it doesn't matter to you, that's fine. Number one. Number two, that everything doesn't have to have an answer. Right. So I would do, well, like, how does that get you closer to God? Like, I'd get all kind of like meh about it. Right. I'd be like, how does that get you to the thing? Well, what if it's just fun? Like, what if it's just enjoyable? So that was a big takeaway for me for the idea of actually doing it. Like, just doing things for fun. And the reason why I bring it up is because I'm going to take us all the way back to the beginning on why we have a goal. And when sometimes we see someone else have something and we think we want it, right? So I would get, like, I don't know if you guys remember, I don't know if it was just a United States thing, but adult coloring books became very popular. Right. So by adult coloring books, it was basically like images that were a little bit more sophisticated than like your average coloring book for a child.
Not like porn. It's not like that kind of adult.
No, not like
no, I was just kidding. That's what came to my mind. That was the first thing. Like, I knew what you were talking about logically, but you said adult coloring books, and I was like, that's a lot of nude color.
Okay, so like mandalas. Like, it was, yeah, it is not that kind of show.
I don't even know where my brain is.
That is hysterical.
A lot of the same color and pink.
So like mandalas, sophisticated shapes, and like flowers and stuff. Oh my God, you crack me up. Okay, so but I remembered being very jealous of people. I was like, and I went to a negative place. I was like, must be nice to just be able to sit and to color. And when I stopped being a butthead and realized that why am I jealous of that? Well, that's because I am not giving myself permission to have time to do something that is frivolous. Right? Was really what it all came down to, because I freaking love to color, but that always felt like time. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. You just sat and colored a page. How old are you? Right? Like, I did all of these false narratives to myself. Right? So what I did was with I normally also have a paper, calendar for the year, but I made a mistake and I bought the wrong kind of calendar, and it was too far into the year this past year for me to switch it up. So I learned something. I was without a calendar the whole year. I had to make my own. It was awful. But what I do is each month I print, let me find a good one. So I print out, I showed this to DeAnna. I think August was good. Oh, no, it's not a great picture, but that one's good. Okay. So I can do this. Hang on. I'm so sorry.
This is perfect. I went and got my calendar and yes. This is a great example of like how things can be completely different, but the same
concept.
Yes.
So I got my paper calendar out, which I always want a calendar at a glance. Like, I always want the first month. But then what I found out this year was that I prefer a weekly calendar after this that's in columns. Mm-hmm. I need it in columns, not in rows. Like, that's how silly it was, because I got a calendar this year that was in rows, and I tried to make it work because I spent that money and I hated it and I didn't use it. And so I'm like, okay, I learned that columns are what I need. I need Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I was like, okay, that's fine. So what I do, though, is I follow an artist that sends out these calendars, which is great, and I fill it out. But then she sends out a coloring page every month. So I do my calendar, and then I do the coloring page. And this is a part of my every month. Like, I'm allowed to do it. I'm allowed to write out my calendar, and then I do my coloring page. And I treat it as a chore, like that I have to do it, because it allows fun into my life. Like, because I'll just write it out. Like, I'll just be like, you can't do that. Right. So I do my coloring page. And then I will do a free write for the month. Right. So let me find, August was like a really good one to talk about. There we go. So similarly to what I learned doing these pages was that to do goals, lists give me anxiety when I'm trying to figure stuff out. Once I figure it out, I love a list. I love a checkbox, but only once I've figured it out. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, which I often do when I'm like, oh, the month, I got so much to do. So I do a free write page. Oh, there we go. Back. There we go. So I fill it with stickers. I kind of just fill in. And what does that mean? So I can even read, like, take time for yourself, create, and I'll give some examples. Move your body. Let's say I say move. Your body is the house to your spirit, right? So I gave myself some little things. With Thorn and Poppy, I put some things, like just stuff that was really important to me for that month. So that way it's like, oh, fun. Oh, don't forget you want to do these things. And then I can come back to this every month. Right. And I might do, like, I usually follow. Yeah, here's my follow up. right? So here's a follow-up where it starts to get more organized, right? So then you start to see things section off and get lists. But I included stickers because they're pretty and they make me happy. And you end up, yeah. I like translated that into things that like, well, who cares if it's frivolous? I like my gel pens, and yes, I'm 40, and no, I don't care. Right? Like, it was what got me into it, what made it feel fun, what made me get excited about it. And those were silly things, but stuff that I realized I needed more in my life. So I took this very like avant-garde concept, and then I needled it into like my actual monthly planning, and it felt so silly to do, but I really love it. And it makes me happy to prep every month. Like, it feels like I'm starting every month with fun, and then even the stuff that has to get done, I'm like, okay, well, we're gonna organize this. It's gonna be fine. We're gonna get a happy sticker for it. Boom. Like, that's the way that I roll with it. So yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this latest episode in our Creating Success series. We share even more tools, including software, planners, how we schedule a full year, and so much more over in the full course on fcbdu.com. Join us in the final part of this series as we'll discuss ways to work through obstacles and create positive habits.